The story begins with an exhausted guy just calling his friends and asking if this dungeon they're attempting isn't too difficult. Man. One of them shouts that the guild reinforcements were about to arrive and that they just needed to hold on a little longer. But they were sure that at this rate everyone was going to end up dead. Until suddenly, a guy with a book in his hand appears and tells everyone to take a step back. Everyone turns to see who it is, and a bunch of spears rain down on the monster, the guy with the phone on his forehead. I just noticed that now he says that yes, he really is the man, and asks the one who's live streaming if they can see the Hunter of Hunters, the legendary Guishenbach. He was the one in front of them. Someone is watching this live on their phone and questions that whole Hunter of Hunters deal. To him, it made no sense, since that guy couldn't even go to his own son's graduation. Yeah, you can already imagine it, right? That kid cursing over there is probably that bastard's son. A friend approaches him and asks why he's alone. And Seongjun, a bit awkwardly, says they're busy. The guys ask him to take a picture for them, and he helps. While thinking that it's always like this, his father is always busy when he gets home. He sees his mother looking a bit tired. She's taking care of his sister who's been in a coma for 12 years. Man, doing those leg movements. I guess to keep the muscles flexible, that kind of thing, right? Or just in case she wakes up. Seongjun asks her why he didn't go to the graduation, and she simply replies that he should already know why. Angrily, he screams for some peace and asks why it wasn't just one day that he needed. It seemed like everyone there only cared about his sister. But then someone appears behind him and tells him he was yelling too much, man. He turns around. It's the tough dad, right? Man Jishinbach, the Hunter of Hunters. He's about to ask how the bastard got there so fast, but the father just says that he had already told him not to raise his voice in the house. With that, Seongjun turns around to smile, and the father wants to know where he's going when our boy says he's going to the training hall. The father tells him that he's already told him time and time again, with the talent he has, it's impossible for him to become a hunter. It would be much better if he just gave up on it. Obviously, man, that just made the kid even more motivated in his training. Du Chong, who is the coach, says that today was more intense than usual. The two are locked shoulder to shoulder until the guy goes to make a move, and our boy has to back off. Wow. He pulled out a little Kurapika type power there, man. I thought that bastard didn't have any power. The attack goes towards Ju Chong and starts to wrap around the sword, but in a second, the guy kind of destroyed everything. Seongjun, poor kid, didn't understand a thing and was already on the ground in a second. The guy still makes fun of him, saying that maybe it would have worked this time if those chains of his weren't so weak. Maybe he would fight better if he didn't try to rely on that power. Sometime later, at the restaurant, the coach says he'll pay for the food today, since he got his butt kicked, but Seongjun says there's no point in trying to treat someone when he's broke too. All he wanted was for them to keep training. Ju Chong asks him why he wants to train even more. The exam for the Hunter Academy was already over, so they just had to wait. The results, but according to Jojong, he yells no. Most of the competitors had multiple skills or were regressors. Man, what the hell? A bunch of people already came back from the future, but how does that timeline even work? Someone explain it. And Seong Ji-eun is there screaming, saying that with the trash skills he has, it's impossible for him to become a hunter, and that if he wanted his father to acknowledge him, he couldn't just stay at home lazing around. Jojong looks at him and says that all of this just proves he should give up. He's already realized that the guy doesn't even seem comfortable in his own home. At this rate, he'll soon have nowhere to return to when things get tough. Outside, in the rain, a reporter is talking, saying that 100 years have passed since the monsters appeared. 2 decades have passed since those disgusting creatures started disguising themselves as humans. They say they're regressors who belong to this world, but that's just talk to fool everyone, and they need to make it clear that this place isn't home to those people. It would be better if all those weirdos went back to the hell they came from. While the guy is giving that speech, Seongjun is standing there with his phone ringing. The message from the Hunter Academy exam had arrived, and obviously, to the surprise of no one, the fool hadn't passed. Then everyone looks and sees him screaming or saying that this place where he lives was already hell. 10 seconds later, he's just standing there like a loser in the rain. On the ground, his phone rings with his mom calling. He answers, a bit awkwardly, asking what's up, and in the next scene, he's arriving home all scared. The doctor says it's crazy to see someone who was in a coma for 12 years wake up in a condition that's actually not so bad. Then, the mother turns crying to another boy and tells him to say hi to his sister. For sure, this sister who was in a coma for 12 years is going to wake up with the most broken power in the world, and he's going to get even more pissed off. And sometime later, the mother says the sister is feeling a bit anxious, so they're going to have to be with her a lot so she can start getting used to everything. She asks our guy for them to take turns, but he says he also has a lot of things to do. Just because he graduated, it doesn't mean he has all the free time in the world. The mother says that it's his sister, but he yells back that he doesn't even remember ever talking to her. Man, this protagonist, the bastard isn't helping us like him either. Damn idiot, take care of your damn sister. The father tells him to be careful with what he says, but our guy replies that the one who needs to watch what he says is him. It's not worth arguing over. The sister says she doesn't like this and starts to cry. The mother goes to comfort the girl. Our guy just stands there like an idiot after saying a bunch of nonsense. After that, he started to spend at least 3 full days in the hospital with her. Our guy realized that his mother wanted them to get closer and closer, but from the way his sister was side-eyeing him, you could tell our guy didn't really like the idea. Outside, there he is with his chains, tired as ever. The bastard at least didn't stop training, determined, even after not being accepted, knowing that his training wouldn't make any difference. Until at one point, he enters the room and the bed is empty. Man, outside, his sister is sitting on a bench. When he arrives and calls her name, she gets scared and screams. He asks what she's doing there and tells her she can't just disappear like that. The sister, whose name is Seongjun, a bit embarrassed, she apologizes, saying that she felt a little suffocated in there and asks if she can at least stay outside for a while. He seems a little annoyed, but says it's okay, so he's sitting there next to her playing on his phone. Suddenly, his sister asks him if by any chance he hates her. He's a little surprised, asking why, and she says that she finds him a bit intimidating, that he looks more like their father now and that he used to be cuter. Our boy explains that the last time they spoke, he was 5 years old, and he doesn't even remember what he was like back then. So-hyun says she doesn't remember much either. Dad and mom are older, the siblings changed completely. She couldn't even go to school. For some reason, she felt like she was alone in this world. That hit our boy right in the feels, right guys? He feels lonely too, after all, and so he asks her what nonsense she's talking. She had him, she had mom, she had a dad, so how could she be alone? Not to mention she could always make new friends. Just because she couldn't go to school doesn't mean she would be alone forever. That made our boy think that going to the Hunter Academy wasn't the only way to become a hunter. Yoo-young, who is his coach, never went to the academy. It was still too early to give up, then So-yoon thanks him and says that they should go back. Our boy then goes and asks her how she got down there. There was a wheelchair, and her muscles should be totally atrophied, but guys, the girl's floating, right, man? Deposit $1 million into my account right now. This was obvious, damn it. He asks what's going on. And she says that the whole time she was asleep, she lived in the fairy realm. Seongjun is standing there with his mouth wide open, remembering that reporter who said that those people who return from another world are a bunch of demons, and also his father saying that with the talent he has, he would never become a hunter. Seeing her floating there calmly and glowing, man, the boy was in shock. We go into a flashback to find out if this brat was also strong in the past. The mother appeared to scold the 2 darn kids who were super dirty. They complained, but said that tomorrow they would play more and come back home. However, tomorrow, man, is unknown territory for anyone. Once home, they bathed, had dinner, and went to sleep. So-hyun went to bed wondering what she would do tomorrow, but it was at that moment that a strange blue fairy appeared and told her that she had been chosen to go to its world and asked her if she was interested in saving that place. After that, So-yoon spent about 6 months in that other world, but when she returned, she discovered that 12 years had passed in her world. And now, at the hospital, a guy says he's sure his daughter is a returnee. The bracelet on her arm was supposed to be some kind of awakened ability, but it didn't work on those who brought powers from another world. The guy then asks So-yoon to talk about that place she went to. She just says that the fairy explained to her what she could and couldn't do, or how to use magic and the necessary knowledge to survive, and also how to face the queen. The guy is a little confused, right? He tells her to talk about that queen. She says that queen was a bad person in that world, and there was a promise that if she managed to beat her up, she could return to this world. The guy asks if she came back after killing the queen, and the girl shouts saying she didn't manage to resolve the conflict by talking, and she didn't learn any dangerous magic either. The guy, however, says that none of that matters. The power of returnees is always dangerous. That's because most of them gain enough strength to save another world. That alone was enough for him to be sure that the power she received surpassed that of an S-rank hunter. Lastly, it was common for a returnee's abilities to be different from the ones they had in the other world, which is why family members needed to keep an eye on her and prevent her from using her abilities at all costs. Tomorrow, the hunter's office would contact her. At the door, she heard everything and just walked away. Man, remembering that in the hunter exam, they said that her physical abilities were actually good enough to be a hunter, the problem was that her ability was useless in combat against monsters. That's because the durability of her chains was worse than a normal chain, which is why her ability was classified as F rank. Oh man, I thought it was like Kurapika's brutal chains, but the girl is stuck with some Walmart chains. Just then, the sister appeared looking a bit uncomfortable and asks him if he isn't surprised. She said he didn't have to be afraid, besides nothing had changed from the past, but Seongjun just told her to get lost. Man, the poor girl flinched a little and said she'd rather be alone. Oh, Seongjun. Poor girl. She was there trembling, trying to understand why, but he just yelled at her and told her to disappear. Man, with that, she got up and left. There he was, on the street, all alone again. Suddenly he stops and wonders what he's doing, why he's so pathetic, and so, in the midst of these questions, he notices that people are gathering and wonders why. In the middle of the crowd was his father, all bloody and just like always, right? Man, this guy works hard. Meanwhile, his sister was in the hospital looking out the window, remembering the scolding she received. He didn't seem like the boy from before, and suddenly she disappears and flies away. Man, she flies a bit over the city and stops in front of that same playground from the past. Remembering their mother, taking care of both of them. Oh, all she wanted was to go back to those times. She starts crying, repeating that she wanted to go back, when suddenly some guys appear behind her and she turns around. The blonde on the right asks what she's doing there and if she's okay. She doesn't really know how to answer, and he says that this place has been abandoned for a long time because of a dungeon break that happened. It wasn't good for a poor person to be wanting to sleep around here. She starts to back away, moving away a little as they get closer. When she's about to say that she's fine and that she knows how to get back, out of nowhere, the guy hits her on the head. Man, what the hell? The girl went limp and suddenly dropped to the ground. Obviously, the bastard is still saying that if he hit her, she belongs to him. But guys, the girl is getting up. Again, the guy asks, what's going on? How the hell was that brat getting up? And from her expression, she's not at all happy about getting hit in the head. His friends ask the guy, if he doesn't even know how to use a bat, if he wasn't able to blow her head off, and the guy says it makes no sense. The bat is all dirty, he definitely hit her hard. Meanwhile, Seongjun wonders, right, why he hit her like that. The guy approaches again, saying that maybe this way will be better, but at that moment she points her hand and says that if they keep coming closer, she's going to shoot. Guys, you three, you'd better back off, man. You can tell they're about to get run through. Obviously, the three side characters are excited to fulfill their role in the story. Then, Seongjun remembers a magic book the fairy gave her. This was a basic spell called Bow and Arrow. She didn't have to worry because whoever gets hit doesn't die. Normally, they're just petrified for a short time. However, the second she fired, right man, look at that red beam hitting. The guy's expression changed immediately. And Seongjun remembers that the guy from the guild warned her, the moment a returnee comes back to this world, their abilities change completely. And man, it opened up a crater so deep that you could see the other two behind it. The guy fell in there. Only a stain was left on the ground, and Seongjun, looking at her own hand, wondered why that had happened. Getting back to our boy, at that moment, In the crowd, man, there was the father holding the YouTube guy by the arm, all dead and smashed up. Everyone is asking if he's really dead, and not even his father. You can see that Seongjun is there, watching everything. The future Mr. Beast was captured, and the father asks, right, what he's doing there and where his sister is. Our boy, a bit uncomfortable, asks if he can't even go out for a walk. The father looks at him intently and asks if this is the first time he's seen a corpse. Our boy says yes, and the father then says 4 out of every 10. That was the mortality rate in the hunter industry. Last year, out of every 10 people, 2 suffered an extremely serious injury. Normally, those who are left behind get traumatized and pretend to be hunters, and that pattern held for their entire lives. With no exceptions for rookies or veterans, he had to understand that this was the kind of world he lived in, and he wanted to know if the boy was really sure and wanted to survive in something like this. Out of nowhere, Seongjun completely broke down. You could already tell he was going to chicken out because he was scared of his father and says no. The father simply puts his hand on the boy and says he's sure his son won't be able to handle it. That's why the boy is also all broken. Cursed family. Now, outside the hospital, like looking inside, he says it was always like this. He really doesn't have any skills and he's trying to deny reality or reject that he's weak, remembering when he used to see his father with all those stylish hunters, probably just all dead. He didn't even know what he wanted to do at that moment. While he was wondering if becoming a hunter is what he really wants, he sees his sister flying there. Man. He approaches a bit uneasy and quickly notices she's covered in blood, and there it is. He gets that from his father. He tells her to come down, asking if she's hurt and what happened. Then Sohyun comes to her senses and remembers that the guy said her abilities could be dangerous. Dangerous. She starts repeating for him not to get any closer while he doesn't understand a thing. Just then, she remembers the guy she blew up with the arrow, tells him to get away, and out of nowhere, a light explodes right there in the middle of the forest. Sometime later, he's thrown against a tree, all busted up too. In the middle of it all, the sister is surrounded by a purple aura, and someone says there's a person destroying buildings. She's losing control, crying. While Seongjun asks if she's gone crazy, what happened? The poor girl repeats to herself that she wants to stop this, but at the same time says she doesn't want to stop and is totally losing her mind. She tells him to get away. Trees are being sliced, shooting slashes everywhere. Man, seriously. Now, I get why that reporter said these returnees came from hell. It's really like that. The worst part is that Seongjun knew that using powers indiscriminately in the street would get her executed. What was he going to do? He could try to stop her, alert his father, but the police would get there much faster than him. So that's when he comes up with something and wonders if there's anything he can do, but looking at himself, he knows. Man, there's no way he stands a chance against her. The best thing he could really do was run. In the end, none of this was his fault, but suddenly, he sees a kid there, looking at him, while his sister keeps losing control, saying she doesn't want to do this. When she opens her eyes, man, she sees him running towards her with those lame chains, dodging everything, yelling, asking if she could hear him and telling her to calm down. At that moment, our boy remembers what his father said, right, about the mortality rate among hunters. Man, he's not even officially a hunter yet, and he's already risking his life, but at the same time, he came to the conclusion that risking your life is what a hunter does. So he yells, telling her that she needs to calm down and break free from that confusion. Sohyun starts to wonder why he was going so far for her. She wasn't the same person he used to know. The fairy suddenly takes her hand and asks her what the problem is. She was the heroine who had saved their world, but Sohyun replies that no, in that other world she was only physically an adult, she had no friends, and was dangerous. She had just arrived and had already killed a bunch of people, and everyone hated her. The fairy, however, says that's not true. At least she'd never seen anyone risk their own life to save someone they hated. The chain gets closer, and in the next scene, she goes flying with the boy in her arms, crying. The problem is the police are surrounding the place, right, man? So things are not going to end well for him. Our boy sees himself as a kid, all happy, and says that at least he managed to do that. Another guy shows up and asks his friend if she saw what that kid did. With that, the incident was handled by the police. They made sure nothing got to the news, but the outcome was obvious, right, man? Seongjun ended up in jail. The guard appears and says that visiting hours have started. As she's being led down the hall, she remembers how much her mother cried as soon as she found out she would be arrested. The guy opens the door and she thinks it'll be her mom, but who's there? Man, it's her dad. She sits all hunched over, tries to explain things, but he cuts her off and says he's there to get her out of that place. That woman with glasses who came and talked to her has the power to read people's memories. She was able to see in the memories that she was attacked first and used her power to defend herself. By law, that act of using force was justified, so obviously she couldn't be jailed for it. Since Soyun is from the fairy world, she doesn't understand any of that justified action stuff, use of force, legal issues, right? But her father explains to her basically it means she's not guilty and that's why she'll be released. Awkwardly, she tries to say that she killed someone, but her father says the person she shot didn't die. There are a ton of users who can recover from any kind of injury, so he's probably already fine. Man, the healers in this world are totally broken, huh? The guy was okay, so it's all good then. But Soyun cries, saying she feels relieved. Her father doesn't say anything, and then the woman with glasses asks if they're done talking. Oh, he's outside and says yes. Then the woman explains that they couldn't pay the hospital bill and that he's definitely going to face punishment for that. The father replies that it's all fine, he's just relieved it's ending like this. The woman tells him not to worry, since everyone there owes the great hunter Shimbek something. What she wants to know is why he's so sure in saying that. The person she attacked surely must have died. Shinbek says that maybe when she knows the truth, she'll be more emotionally stable. The woman says that makes sense and hands him a document, telling him to take it. There, he reads a document for his daughter. Suddenly, he frowns and asks who sent that. Apparently, that Fortnite guy showed up. It must have been him who sent that mess. Meanwhile, Seonghyun hasn't even recovered and he's already back to his training. Man, the kid's great talent is throwing a chain that catches a can. Oh, he's standing in front of a guy who doesn't seem very impressed. You want to know who that crazy guy is? And the coach replies that he doesn't know either. The guy says not to worry too much about him and to just keep doing what they were doing. Seonghyun, however, replies that he can't concentrate with the damn commentator on the side talking nonsense. The guy, however, asks if it's really because of him. Is he seriously going to say he can't concentrate in a real fight because of something so trivial? That kind of triviality would definitely happen in a dungeon, and if he can't concentrate just because someone is eating chips next to him, it already shows he's not ready. Just then, Seongjun steps forward and asks if the old man knows him. This guy is about to pick a fight right now. Seongjun is about to talk about how much he practiced, but the guy just stands up and says he doesn't care, and says he recognizes that the kid really has good physical ability, but his mastery was terrible. Our boy didn't even notice that the guy, in a split second, was already behind him. The man says that those chains he created with his own energy are horrible, since he's forced to keep consuming it, just to be able to control them. Not to mention that he uses too much energy with every action and they aren't precise at all. He needed to understand that professionals don't even use that much energy. He takes the bag of chips and says, "This is how it's done." Man, with a single strike, all the cans are pierced. He asks if the kid understood, and our boy is truly shocked. The craziest part is that the bag of chips that was wrapped in his energy was still intact, while Jojong wonders who that guy is. The man approaches our boy and says that he doesn't even know his own true power. Then he takes out a scroll and says that this is a tool that summons returnees, and he wanted him to bring it close to the chain. The second he touches it, the object disappears, and he says that now he understands about our boy. Do you remember what happened at the hospital? Because he clearly saw that the moment the boy's chains touched his sister, it completely extinguished her powers. In other words, he had the never-before-seen talent of sealing the powers of returnees. Trying to use those chains as a weapon was the true definition of wasted talent. Confused, Seongjun asks how he knows all that and who the hell he is. He introduces himself as Ji-shun, a professional hunter and a teacher at the Academy for Special Abilities, and today, he's there to recruit the punk, right, man? Our boy is totally frozen and says he already failed the entrance exam. Jishun says not to worry about that. He has the authority to enroll any student there, and the ability the boy had was good enough, but of course, he's the one who makes the final decision. Is he going to want to join the academy or not? Man, the boy suddenly makes that goofy actor face saying, "What is this, huh?" Almost crying. Oh my god, he just lost 10 aura points! The guy laughs and welcomes him to the Hunter Academy, but suddenly something flies towards him. Jishun turns around and manages to catch it in midair. Man! It's that paper, and here comes Shinbek, furious and emanating aura, demanding that Jishun explain right now what he's planning with that. But Jishun turns and replies that's the question he should be asking him. While the father gets upset, Seongjun doesn't understand anything that's happening, and now Jishun, face to face, simply says that the more he sees Shinbek, the more he realizes he's old and wrinkled. He should start attending the meetings before people forget what he looks like, but the father tells him to stop changing the subject and answer what that thing is. Jishun says it's obvious. He just sent the kids a little recommendation letter. Seongjun was a returnee with an S-rank ability, and Seongjun had an unprecedented ability, but the father says he doesn't accept that for either of them. Even though Seongjun had a bigger body, she only spent 6 months in the other world, so she still has the mentality of a little girl and can't go to an academy like that. Jishun, however, says that she needs to adapt, man, and that he's always the one saying that. Besides, it seems her power is getting out of control right now. Without knowing how to use her powers, she was basically a bomb, and the only chance was to train with the school's experts, but the father says he alone is enough to train her. He looks to the side and says that, besides that kid over there had no talent, and tells our boy that he needs to understand determination without strength only leads to death. There goes our boy, who's emo one moment and motivated the next. But then Ji-hyung says he's wrong. He saw with his own eyes that the boy was brave and jumped in to save his sister. He has the necessary courage to become a hunter, but Shinbek replies, that's not bravery. It's recklessness. He turns to our boy and asks him if at that moment he knew what his sister's ability was, and if he really thought he could stop her power. Seongjun, all flustered, tries to explain that he was just afraid she'd get hurt, but his father cuts him off and says that's the problem. He wasn't focused on the outcome. The only reason he's still alive now is because he was lucky his ability worked this time, but he's going to live as a hunter who gambles. On luck every single time. Woo Gi-hyung was trying to recommend the boy, but he didn't know anything. That letter wouldn't get him any special treatment. In the end, he'd just end up at that academy to be crushed by the competition. Man, this father doesn't help either. What a total bastard for putting his son down while they're both arguing. Seongjun asks why his father always does this. Why hasn't he even once had the guts to say he did a good job? He doesn't even get praised for saving his sister, something that should be obvious. He's about to go crazy right there. And when suddenly someone grabs his arm, it's Yu-young who praises our boy. Now that a master had acknowledged him, he was closer to his dream. Our boy is all awkward, saying it's not that big of a deal or whatever. But the guy tells him not to overthink it. All he needs to do is follow the path he believes is right. The man, looking at the chains on his hand, says he trusts the work the boy has shown, and obviously he's speaking directly to the father. That he shouldn't care about the opinions of people who don't acknowledge him, don't know him, and even less so when it's someone who knows nothing about him. Man, I thought this guy worked for the father, right? Like some kind of spy, but apparently they don't get along either. And the father says that now he understands why the boy is so obsessed with becoming a hunter. It must have been this guy, the idiot who gave him that false hope. The father's aura makes the guy start to break out in a cold sweat, but the boy slaps himself in the face while mentally thanking the master for helping him clear his mind. Then he says that at first he really just wanted to be like his father. He wanted to be acknowledged and prove he could win. He was just thinking about pathetic things like that. But that day at the hospital, things were completely different, and now he was ready. Man, he was going to become a hunter, even if it meant having to fight his father. But Shinbek turns around and says he already knew. That words alone weren't enough for him to understand things. The man puts his hand on the boy's shoulder, leans close to his ear, and tells him to go ahead to try it. Then our boy is even startled, and the father says that he's going to find out soon enough. He wasn't born to walk this path he's trying to follow. The father would give him 1 year to get into the student council. If he couldn't even achieve that, he would be forcibly taken back home. Jishung tries to say something, but the father just tells him to shut up and warns Seongjun that he'd better protect his sister. Her powers weren't stable at all, and like it or not, the only option was to send the boy as well. He better make sure she lives peacefully at the school, and just like with the first condition, if anything were to happen, he would be brought back immediately. He asks if he understood, and of course, he says yes, right? This one really obeys his father, man. With that, the guy lets him go and leaves. The three of them are left standing there looking like fools, saying they really thought they were going to die. Once on the street, Jung calls out to him, asking if he didn't go too far by saying the boy would have to get into the student council. He should know that only the strongest could reach that position. Being an F rank and in his first year, it would be impossible. The father, however, says that if the boy had the courage to tell him to his face that he was going to become a hunter, that was the least he should be able to do. The friend keeps insisting, and then Shimbaik says he never wanted to drag anyone down that path, but remembering that our boy said he wanted to be like him, he turns around and says that in the end, he ended up dragging him along anyway. Back at the hospital, Seongjun is looking at the admission letter and is all happy about it. The month of February came to an end, and there's our boy practicing with his chains, looking tired. March arrived with a sudden change. Man, that was the ship for the Hunter Academy students, and now it was departing. Guys, next chapter. What was that about him saying he must be lying? There were still people there, the whole place is on fire. It looks like it's the father, right, with the hand that killed everyone. And our boy screams, saying that a hunter shouldn't act like that. Suddenly, he wakes up in bed, white hair. I don't think that was the protagonist. Who is this guy? I'm not even going to try to guess too much, right? We'll find out soon enough. The one with glasses asks if he's okay, right? Because it looked like he was screaming in his sleep. He says he is, and then the guy says he must be the new student, since it's the first time he's seen him there. The one with glasses introduces himself as Purium. What a name, man! A second-year student. And the white-haired guy shakes his hand and says his name is Seol Subin. Nice to meet you. We're on the ship. The siblings are looking at a box full of supplies, wondering why they're getting so much stuff. Are we going to have a survival arc in the forest, like in Hunter Tens Hunter? I'm ready for that. I get it now. That's our boy's suitcase, and it looks like he stole a bunch of stuff from his dad. Damn, I'm just here daydreaming, all by myself. Suddenly, the sister gets up and says she's going for a walk. He tells her not to go alone, but she says she'll call him if anything happens. She knows the room is 105, and goodbye. Our boy realizes he's raising a child. He looks out the window, thinking that the important thing is to know what they're going to do from now on. Meanwhile, there's a blonde guy on the cover saying that this new school life will be full of encounters and he needs to befriend strong people, right? To make life easier, real easy, but that was just what a beginner would think, and that's why Purium is acting like this. Apparently, he's not right in the head, and the two guys next to him are trying to figure out what this crazy guy is talking about. The blonde guy snaps back to normal and says that approaching other students is fine, but that next time it would be better to bring a really pretty girl their age. The guy with glasses apologizes, saying that this crazy guy Woojin is kind of addicted to girls. I don't blame the rascal. And there he is looking annoyed, saying that he's been looking everywhere and hasn't seen anyone, but look who he ends up spotting. Am I right? Feeding the birds, she's a little sad because the birds aren't taking her chips. When she suddenly drops the bag, but in that very same second, Woojin shows up, picks it up, and hands it to her. She, all sweet, thanks him, but this guy, man, is not right in the head. Right away, he tells her that she couldn't attract any birds, but she managed to attract someone else. She's a little confused, while his friend wonders if it's okay to let this lunatic keep acting like this. Purium replies that since she's not running away, it's a revolution. A lot of people there had already participated before. The only downside was that you had to pay a fee that was ridiculously expensive. Subin says it makes sense to pay. After all, whoever graduates from there doesn't have to worry about work ever again, But remembering that hunter who burned everything, she says that not everyone deserves that qualification. Purium takes a look and wonders where he was going with the girl. He says it's better to follow him, since that guy isn't right in the head. And off they go. Man! Next scene, already in the room, she brought the guy over to meet our guy. Or rather, she came to report him. Because she then tells our guy to just forget it, that this guy was following her, asking if she had a boyfriend, and even touched her. The next second, from outside, the friends see the idiot getting kicked out of the room. He tells our guy that they could talk a bit, but Seongjun is already about to hit him. The guy with glasses comes to help, while Subin is just sitting there like, what happened? It seems that in the next scene, our guy explained that she had been asleep for 12 years, and just then, the guys start apologizing to the fan, saying they didn't know that. Our guy says it's okay and apologizes for hitting them out of nowhere. Then, the guy with glasses says that he and Subin must be the same age, and the guy greets our guy, who, being all handsome like that, doesn't even bother much to greet him back. A little later, outside, Purium asks if he's in the hunter department, and he says yes. The guy wants to know if there are any hunters he's a fan of or that he likes. Our guy says, not personally, his father was a hunter, so he had some influence. Then the guy remembers that his name is Seongjun, and asks if by any chance he knows Shinbeek, and yeah man, just as we imagined, Subin's eyes are already wide open. He remembers the bastard the moment our guy says, yeah, that's my father. The fool is left speechless, frozen, while the others are shocked, asking if he's lying, saying they're fans and all that, but Subin remembers very well who Gishinbeck is, and now he's just sitting there not even knowing how to process it, man. Right in front of him was that person's son. Purium says his father was a role model when he was younger, and he dreamed of being a hunter. He always admired him as an inspiration. Our boy asks if he doesn't want to be a hunter anymore, and he explains that he's now in the engineering department. Magical engineering. He doesn't have any talent for being a hunter. No, that's because he's E rank, man. Our boy is still thinking, and he's here, but he's F rank. And right at that moment, the sister says exactly that, and the three of them are startled. Our boy gets a little uncomfortable, and Purium wants to know how he even became a hunter and got admitted if he's F rank. 19. So Hyun steps in before he can say anything, explaining that they were admitted on recommendation. He scratches his head, looking from side to side, but we're definitely going to end up hating him, right, man? Then he calls over to Purium and tells him that if he trains hard, maybe he'll also end up becoming a hunter like him. Or at least, manage to get into the department to take the tests. Obviously, Subin must be thinking that this brat is nothing more than a spoiled kid who's there because of his dad. The journey continues with Purium, teaching his sister how to play on the Nintendo Switch, Woojin flirting with the girls, and our boy pacing back and forth. That's when he sees Subin at the railing and goes to ask him if he's feeling seasick. He answers yes, and our boy stops beside him. Then, the guy asks him why he wants to become a hunter. Seongjun starts to say something about his father, but Subin interrupts him and says that's not what he's asking. He wants to know what his beliefs are, what his mindset is. Out of nowhere, the guy is trying to get into coach mode and change the kid, huh? He remembers that moment when he saw himself as a child, but says he's not sure. He hasn't thought about it that deeply. Subin then says that when you watch the news, you see all kinds of people who became hunters without the proper motivation, those who just want to make easy money or become famous. Our boy agrees that there are people like that, and the guy just won't stop talking, man. He says those people don't understand that becoming a hunter doesn't just bring benefits, it also brings responsibilities. And that's why he hates hunters. Confused, he then wonders why he wants to become one, to which he replies that he wants to be someone who can save everyone, and because of that, he wants to tell our boy not to go to the academy. Seongjun pauses for a moment and asks what he's talking about. Subin says it's ridiculous that he told Purium he could become a hunter so easily. He's E rank. The moment a person awakens, that's it, their rank is set and it never changes. On top of that, getting into this academy is incredibly expensive, unless you have connections, or you're like him, with a rich father who pays for everything. Ugh, man, little does he know that father isn't exactly supportive. One, Seongjun immediately tells him to be careful how he says things. Besides, he was there because he awakened his powers after a lot of training. 2. Seo-Subin replies that awakening powers has nothing to do with effort. 3. If he awakened a power he didn't have before, that just means he didn't know what it was or didn't realize he had it. 4. All that happened was that, by sheer luck, he ended up using the fact that he received a recommendation to get into this place, even being F rank, and the fact that he, Subin, is also there, it was all just luck. And saying he's going to become a hunter without acknowledging something so obvious just shows how immature he is. And that mentally, he's on the same level as his sister. Man, obviously our boy went straight to throw a punch. It looked like he was going to hit him right in the face, but I don't know if something happened. The guy is still standing there, intact. Even worse, his sister gets startled, and when she looks over, our boy is on the ground. She asks, what happened? And Subin says he just tripped out of nowhere, but that he's fine, but Seongjun has no idea what happened. Man, right at the moment his fist was about to hit the guy's face, its trajectory changed and he ended up on the floor. And the bastard still turns to our boy and says that someone like him, who can't control himself, going around swinging like that is only going to tarnish the reputation of hunters. He turns around saying that if he had any brains, he would just give up already, but then man, something grabs his foot. It's the porcelain chain of our boy. Again, the sister is startled, and now Subin is the one on the ground. And then the protagonist says that maybe he did end up in this place by pure luck, but there was no way he was going to give up on his own. Oh, Subin says he can stay there as long as he wants, but with that rank of his, he's not going to survive. And our boy just replies, then I want to see it for myself. They would meet at midnight to settle things. Yo, challenging the guy to a duel at midnight. What is this kid, a romantic duel? Sometime later, it starts pouring rain, and So-Hyun remembers, out of nowhere, saying that she didn't want to disappear. She suddenly wakes up and sees she's alone in the room. She gets up, calls for Seongjun, but notices he's not there. So there she is in the hallway, wondering where he went while being scared to death. Out of nowhere, she gets startled. It's Woojin, who appears right behind her, asking what she's doing there. She answers by asking him the same thing, and he says they're going to drop some things off in a room and invites her to come with them. She gets all happy and says yes, and completely forgets about our boy. Upon arriving at the room, there's a small group laughing. Maybe our first waifu. As soon as Woojin sees the girl's face, man, he gets all awkward. In a strange way. Out of nowhere, he turns around and tells his friend Yoonbi that he's leaving. His friend asks, why? And he says that she didn't mention that girl was going to be there. Our boy's sister, however, walks in all happy, saying the place is full of food. The orange-haired girl tells Woojin not to just stand there like an idiot and to sit down. Also annoyed, he says fine and joins them. The girl asks who the new girl is, and he replies that she's a friend of a friend or something like that. And when So-Hyun says hello, the other one doesn't seem happy at all. What is going on, man? So much drama on this ship. Purium is a bit confused to see So-Hyun there and asks where Seongjun went. She says she has no idea. When she woke up, he was already gone. And of course, Purium also notices that Subin wasn't in the room, and that interaction between them seemed a bit weird. Maybe something was going on between those two. At that very moment, the two of them are face to face, and our boy wants to know why the other guy is wearing a raincoat. Subin says, obviously because it's raining, but how is he going to fight holding an umbrella? Our boy says it's the best way to keep the water off his body. They both stare at each other, wondering if the other is an idiot. Just then, they both start to activate their powers, and Subin says the power he has is the water spirit. It was raining, and they were surrounded by the sea. In a place like that, his power was amplified, and if he lost control, our boy could end up dead. But Seongjun just tosses the umbrella aside and asks, weren't you the one who wanted to start this? In that very second, the guy says, very well. Then, the water spirit starts to fly towards Seonji and shoots a blast, a laser man. He dodges it, which surprises the guy. Then he activates the chain and throws it in his direction. The guy says it's impressive, but of course, the chain is easily destroyed. For an F rank, it wasn't bad, it was just weird that the chain was weaker than a real one. Seongjun is already in shock, man. The bastard had two spirits. He's just saying that with what he's using, he's not going to accomplish anything. The durability was so low that it was useless for both attacking and defending. There's our boy doing acrobatics, dodging everything. It's the only thing he has left. Once again, he throws the chain, he attacks, but it shatters against the wall, and the bastard even asks if that's the only useless tactic he has. He should have realized by now that he hasn't taken a single step since this started. It's time for him to understand why he doesn't belong in this place. The boy says that it's precisely because he hasn't moved or taken a single step that he didn't notice. When the guy looks down, man, there were some small chains next to his boot. And the worst part is that our boy had already hooked them to the grate before the other guy could do anything and dragged him back against the wall. And our boy says that he's been using the same tactic because it's the only thing he can do. I thought he was going to drop an epic line, but the guy is just humiliating himself. Now he really humiliates the foolish guy, saying that he was apparently just bluffing because he doesn't seem to be such a high rank. That's because if he were, he wouldn't be getting beaten by an F rank like him. Subin then changes his expression and says that's fine, that he'll start taking it seriously. Seongi tells him to just bring it on, but now we go back to the room with that muscular guy saying that this is a ripoff. It seems the girl there pulled an SS rank character full of lifesteal stats and all that, and she's a bit uncomfortable saying she just got lucky. So Hyun asks what this is, but they don't explain that it's a board game. It seems that it analyzes the power of the person who creates it, and the character kind of matches that. Damn! So that girl is SS rank, bro, she's broken. Now it's Purium's turn, who presses the little button and creates a B rank mage. What? I didn't really like the concept of this game. Bro, the game is supposed to be amazing. If it's gonna be trash, better leave that for real life. But Purium is explaining that the same technology used in this game is the one he uses on the training team. Wow, man! He handed it to Soyun and told her to try it. Thank God the device didn't activate. But she's sad, wanting to know exactly why not. He's a bit confused. The blonde guy has no idea either, and the red-haired girl says maybe she's too weak or doesn't have enough power, when suddenly the device says that Player 5's ability could not be analyzed, and it was estimated that she might be a regressor. The game was explicit, man. With the girl being tortured, everyone is shocked and she receives a random secret class. Everyone gets excited, saying they're jealous, that this is crazy. Wojin then turns around and asks if this is really true. Then he remembers that Yoon told him he had to keep it a secret at all costs, that she was a returner. She asked why, and he explained that most regressors come with a bunch of problems, like her, for example, who just lost 12 years of her life, and that's why they have a hard time adapting to society and end up committing all sorts of crimes and are despised. Because of that, many are considered walking disasters. With a reputation like that, it's better if no one knows or she'll end up being judged. Back in the game, she's all awkward trying to explain and everything, but Woojin just tells her to spit it out already and stop wasting time. He wants to hear her story. He seems excited, wanting to know about the other world and what happened there. She gets the Dragon Hunter class, while everyone is curious to know more about her. Even though the others are excited, she should obviously be hiding it, right? But, poor thing, she's a weak, insane girl, and she's already getting excited, not because anyone is afraid of her. The brown-haired girl says they don't care about that, and at that moment, she gets excited and says, okay, she's gonna tell them. Of course the redhead is probably not happy about that at all, right, bro? And right away, she says she heard that most regressors face countless creatures and opponents. By any chance, had she already killed someone? Just then, So-hyun remembers the guy she blew a hole through his chest, but just when it gets interesting, another time we're back in the courtroom with Gonsabin saying it's a shame, because even though his techniques and strategy were good, none of it was enough. As he ended up on the ground, and with that, he must have understood that sometimes the easy power some people get is stronger than the efforts of others, which is why many give up on their dreams for having a low rank, while others, bro, now showing the sister, get abilities out of nowhere and become untouchable. That's how the world was, whether it was power, family, connections, even skills. There was a clear limit to what someone could achieve with willpower alone. when he entered the Hunter Academy, he was going to find out that there are people much worse, crueler, and stronger than him. In other words, in the end, only Bali suffered. Our boy, however, a man, says his father wasn't even S rank or A rank when he started. Still, he achieved more than anyone of rank A or higher. 1, he cleared countless A and S rank dungeons and saved countless people. 2, everything he did was basically through sheer effort. 3, he may be an F rank, but he wasn't going to give up so easily. 4, Subin says that he apparently knows a lot because of his father and asks if he remembers the S rank gate that appeared in Mapo City 7 years ago. Seongjun frowns and asks why he's bringing that up out of nowhere, and the guy replies that that gate ended with countless casualties, not just because of the monsters, but that many people also died because of the hunter's power. The protagonist asks why he's talking about that, and Subin says it's because no one criticizes what happened back then anymore. Seongjun is about to say that the hunters had their reasons, but Subin interrupts him and says that it was his father who killed the younger sister he had, and that it was ridiculous to say that he had no choice but to sacrifice a bunch of people to save a few. A hunter should protect everyone. Once again, he asks what Seal Subin is trying to do, why he's going through all this, and what kind of hunter you want to be. While all this is happening, there's someone peculiar listening from the side, and of course, now we're back to the moment when the girl with the red hair asked if she had already killed someone. No one could say anything, and obviously, Soyun felt very uncomfortable. She stumbled over her words a bit and suddenly stood up saying she was going to the bathroom. She put her hand on her chest looking a little embarrassed and ran off. The fool laughed, and then Purium asked Midori why she brought that up out of nowhere. She, looking a bit out of it, apologizes and says that the girl is in the engineering department. Anyway, even Purium says no, that she's in the hunter department. Suddenly, the girl's expression changes, and she says that in that case, she's not ready. A hunter isn't someone who just has to kill creatures. Sometimes they need to kill other people. Taking lives is part of the job, and with that mentality, she wasn't ready to be there. Soyun went to another part of the ship. Her heart was pounding, and she kept asking herself why she ran away. All she had to say was that she hadn't killed anyone, but just thinking about that moment when she used that arrow made her heart race. She still feels like she doesn't deserve to be there. Once again, she remembers the fairy and wonders if she'll really be able to make new friends. That's when someone appears by her side. It's that girl who was also in the game, waving and introducing herself as Modan. She asks if she wants to go back and play in the room, but Sohyun simply says no. The girl says it's a shame because it's the first time she's seen someone get a secret class. Sohyun apologizes, but says she's not sure she wants to participate. Thinking about what happened made her scared. Modan says she understands how she feels. She awakened late when she was already in high school. The problem is that it happened right in the middle of class. She lost control and most of her friends were seriously injured, but she still believed in herself and she wasn't going to let anyone push her around, especially since she regained control and managed to survive it. All she has to do is try hard so that something like that doesn't happen again. Then Sohyun remembers when she talked to his consciousness, which is the dream fairy, and asked her if there wasn't a crying stone there before and how it moved. The fairy explains that she simply talked to it and the stone left. Yeah, it really was a crying stone. And now it makes sense. And the fairy explains that she shared her pain with the stone, and with that, it felt better and left. Because that stone, the clouds, and the people all shared the same tears. And that's how many friendships were formed. Sohyun smiled and said she was right. Or all she has to do is try. While they were thinking about going back to the room, an attack happens that catches their attention. They follow it, and of course end up right in the middle of the protagonist's fight, at the moment when Subin was talking about the Mappo incident from 7 years ago. Seongjun replied that no one blamed the father because he wasn't at fault. Back then, he had his reasons, and it was necessary. Just as the guy yelled that his sister died and that his father was a murderer, Sohyun was startled and hid, trying to understand what they were talking about. She only heard clearly that 7 years ago her father had killed Subin's sister. Then the guy asked why. Seongjun wanted to become a hunter. The protagonist replies that he already knows Subin wants to be a hunter who saves. everyone. But he, on the other hand, never even thought about what kind of hunter he wants to become. And he knows that many people on that ship think the same way he does. But regardless of whether he had a goal or not, if he was taking it seriously and doing his best, that was what mattered in the end. But that only makes Subin even more furious. Who says they're completely different? He went in again, but our boy managed to dodge him, grab him by the stomach and throw him to the ground. This guy, Subin, isn't right in the head either, bro. Out of nowhere, he starts screaming. A laser shoots out of him and pierces the clouds. Then one of the spirits gets right in our boy's face and throws him to the ground. But he notices something strange. The spirits were starting to disappear. And once again, Seongjun comes back, bro, but now he lands a direct hit to his face. That's when he realizes that suddenly, someone had placed a power seal on his arm, for sure. It was when our boy got close to him and grabbed his stomach, right? What he can't understand is why a simple student had something like that. Obviously not. The bastard stole everything from his father. And then our boy says that, in the end, he's still the one getting a good beating. Furious, Subin goes at him again, while his sister wonders what they're gonna do. Then, someone appears next to the two of them asking what's going on. In the middle of the fight, Subin wondered what was up with this person who, despite having such an insignificant goal, took things so seriously. He says that, regardless of the goal, what mattered was what he did. That was completely wrong. They weren't the same at all. Then, Subin remembers the day of that dance when he awakened. A desert in the middle of nowhere, bro. Surrounding him were countless bodies of many dead and buried people. That day, he ran endlessly through the ruins, wondering why this had happened to him. What kind of coincidence made him deserve this hell? The ground was soaked in blood, but the stars were shining brighter than ever. He stumbled, fell to the ground, and wondered why no one helped him in that tragedy. If they were hunters, they should have helped everyone who was there. Then he sees an illusion of his older self, saying that he would become the person he needed, someone who would save everyone. And now he's remembering Seongjun, saying they are the same, but he was sure that if that wasn't true, then they were completely different. That's because he always wondered why hunters with the best powers always use them only for selfish desires, so he tells Seongjun that he needs to take all of this more seriously. Seongjun, however, just replies that learning responsibility and why you want to be a hunter is the reason why he's there. They stare at each other for a moment, when suddenly they both hear something to the side and turn around. A very strange guy had fired a shot into the air, and our boy asks, we see a little earlier that it was Purium who had arrived, bro, asking what the two of them were doing and why they didn't just stop already. He comments that they could get hurt, and just then Seokyoung remembers the guy he killed. Girl, calm down now, but she's calm, saying that the best thing to do would be to stop them immediately. Purium asks how, and she simply says, stop them both, bro. Just get in between them and they'll stop. But the guy says that a fight between people with abilities is like getting in the middle of a shootout. Then Sohyun imagines that if she jumps into the middle of the fight, she might end up activating her powers, which would be even worse. The guy then looks at her and tells her to stay there, that he'll take care of it. The weapon he pulls out is a magic tool he had, and that's how he fired the shot and made everything stop. All this drama just for this guy to fire a shot in the air and try to give them both a moral lesson. Luckily, right after Ji-hyung shows up, he appears from behind and asks if that's really a weapon. As he recalls, magic tools are not allowed in the academy or on the ship, so the three of them would have to face disciplinary action. Next scene, the ship is stopping at the island, bro. Woojin says he lost. Even he, who was considered one of the worst students, hadn't received disciplinary action before even arriving at the school. Subin is apologizing to Purium, who says it's okay, that in the end it was his own fault for firing the weapon. Besides that, the weapon he brought was something the professors asked him to develop, so the situation wasn't going to be that serious for him. But then he looks at our boy and says that for them, things were going to be worse. Either way, they would deal with it later. It was time to go to the dorms. She thinks it's strange because she thought she would be near Seongjun, and he explains that there are actually several dorms on that island scattered all over the place. That's when Sohyun starts to get scared of being near that girl. Miju. Then the girls look at their phones and see that at least she and her brother are in the same dorm. Just as he says the name of the place, which is really weird, someone drops their suitcase on the floor. It was Sobin, and obviously from the look on their faces, he must be in the same one. They just stand there looking dumbfounded until a woman shows up saying hello and introduces herself as Gyeon, and that she's their dorm supervisor. Soyeon starts to relax a little. At least that weird girl isn't with her, and Modan says it seems they're together again, so it's going to be great. Considering she's with her brother and her only friend, she's sure the semester is off to a good start. Then we see about 100 years ago in a chaotic era, where monsters devoured people and users of evil abilities roamed the world freely. That's when a man had the idea to create an educational center for ability users. After a few years and avoiding the eyes of the authorities, he created a small school on his own on an isolated island. A while later, it became known as the Hunter School. In that place, nationality, age, or education didn't matter. As long as you had an ability and were awakened, you could be a part of it. Bro, don't give us that false advertising. We already know that if someone is a mess, they get kicked out. Although the island seems small, the big difference with this school is that the entire island was the school, bro. Not only did it have quality materials and very good training areas, but also a vast amount of information. The infrastructure there was as advanced as that of a large city. And what made that possible was that every hunter who dreamed of becoming strong saw that place as the sanctuary of education. And that's when Sohyun arrived, who had no idea about the place's prestige and thought she was just arriving at any old school whatsoever. She's getting ready, and our boy shows up, telling her that the entrance ceremony was about to begin, and so the first semester of the first year starts. Bro, I have a weird feeling because this story already blew a guy in half and now everything is super calm. You know, I feel like chaos and danger are coming. Ceremony day, in a dorm room, our boy is there saying that she finally arrived. It's Sohyun, and he wants to know where the other person is. Modan explains that, so Bin was still getting ready to go to the event, and bro, the guy is kind of weird, right? Who needs to get ready for a ceremony? She says it's obvious he needs to prepare, especially since he's this year's freshman representative. And then Subin appears. Bro, swearing on behalf of the 2,625 new students that they would follow all the school rules, our boy wonders how the guy who got sanctioned before even arriving on the island was now the representative. But he's forced to admit that if he's the representative, then he must at least have one of the best talents. That water cannon he saw shoot up into the sky showed that he had the ability to cause as much damage as an A ranker. But what if they hadn't fought on the ship while it was raining? Or if he hadn't also prepared that power sealing artifact? He knows that if Subin had gone all out from the beginning, his chances of winning would have been much lower. But the thing is, as his father said, he doesn't just have to survive. He has to get into the student council. He didn't have time to be happy just because he was admitted. Classes started right after the ceremony, and he imagines that since it's a hunter school, he's going to be able to learn a lot of cool things. That's when Jiyeon, the supervisor, shows up and says that Sohyun has to go back to the dorm now. She explains that her class is going to be different because she didn't even finish elementary school, and Jiyeon says that during the first few days of class, while the others attend morning classes, she will study to pass the equivalency exam. She asks what that is, and the woman says it's just the basics, bro. She has to study Korean, math, English, social studies, science, and all that stuff. Obviously, the poor girl already hated it because she thought she was there to use powers, bro, but she's already in the car and off she goes. A while later, it's our boy's first class. The first thing he was going to study was hunter ethics. Strangely, everyone has this little red thing in their ear, and Sobin wonders where the professor is if the class starts in 1 minute. Obviously, he must be one of those punctual guys, bro, right as it strikes noon. The door opens, someone comes in, everyone looks and sees that the guy is on some kind of floating skateboard, bro. Everyone looks, and bro, I mean, I said floating skateboard, but is it really? I didn't think the bastard would come in like that. The guy looks at everyone and lets out a nice to meet you, only in Japanese, introducing himself as Hagiwara Jin, and welcomes everyone to his class. First of all, he wants to make it clear that he hates this school. Not just this one, but most institutions. Putting 40 people in the same room is the height of inefficiency. Since no one is at the same level, especially considering that the students here have special abilities and one is completely different from another. They must also be stubborn and have their own principles. He, for example, is the type who likes to be extremely efficient, and following that line of thought, he asks the first question, most small and medium-sized monsters could be eliminated with modern military equipment. Still, only hunters are sent into the dungeons. Why do you think that is? Everyone just stares at each other, not knowing what to say, and he says it's simply because of economics. He says that weapons and tanks are extremely expensive and there's a chance that the profits obtained from the magic stones won't even cover the cost. On the other hand, a hunter just eats and goes to the bathroom. Even if they exert a great deal of physical force, they are still extremely cost-effective, and that's how the hunter profession was born. In the end, it's all about the money. That's the reason they are called hunters and not heroes or superheroes. But obviously, for the hunter themselves, money isn't the only cost. In the middle of combat, they have to learn to use the minimum of their physical and mental energy. They must be optimized and choose the best strategy to fight. Otherwise, they could run out of power in the middle of the dungeon. Seongjun remembers Ji-hyung saying that he wasted too much energy on everything he did, and the professor says that there's nothing more common and more stupid than dying from exhaustion in battle. In other words, efficiency was the #1 quality a hunter needed. He calls on a guy in the front who's already scared, bro. He asks him what his ability is, and he answers that he's a construction sorcerer. That's the same as our boy, bro. The professor had never heard of that. Wants to know the range of the ability, and he says 100 meters at most. Then the professor asks if he can break down minerals and things like that into a physical structure. The guy hesitates for a second before answering, and the professor immediately bombards him with several questions. He wants to know how many kilograms he can handle at once, how fast he can manipulate things and which materials he works best with. Then he lays into him, telling him that if he doesn't know any of that, he's a failure, he doesn't even know himself. Let alone understand the enemy, with the amount of information he has, it's impossible for him to build a strategy in combat. Seongjun just watches, thinking that the poor guy didn't even do anything and he's already been destroyed. Then Hagi, the guy, looks at him and calls on the curly-haired guy. Our boy asks if he's serious and the guy says yes. He tells him to go ahead and state his category. Our boy stays quiet and the guy wants to know why. Looking all awkward, bro, he says he doesn't know anything about that category stuff. Then the professor is in shock. Bro, it's like a kid not knowing what math is in the world of hunters. Even Subin is surprised that he really knows absolutely nothing. Then the guy next to him starts to blow up, asking if he's gone crazy or why he's saying he doesn't even know his own category, especially since he was acting all high and mighty that day on the ship. Second, Seongjun says it was the first time he'd heard about that construction sorcerer thing. Third, Subin looks at him with wide eyes, asking if he really knows nothing. Fourth, he then just walks away, saying to forget it and that he should just focus on learning. Fifth, apparently he thought about teaching the kid but gave up real quick. He's standing there in the middle of everyone looking around thinking there's something weird about this place. Meanwhile, his sister is back in the room relaxing and yeah, she's gonna go through this later too, girl. Because just like him, you know nothing, but look at the advantage that Sly guy has, right bro? He already went to talk to Ji-hyun. The guy said he was busy, but our boy, yeah, that's right, asked him for a little help. Once they're sitting down, he explains that everyone is talking as if, this whole thing with classes and all that is extremely essential. He finds it strange because he's already read a ton of books, internet files and all that, but he knows nothing about this. Ji-hyun leans back and says that the internet and books aren't going to help him in this case. Then he leans in and asks if he can ask him a question. At the very least, did he have an ability user license? A bit awkwardly, Seongjun says not yet, and immediately, the guy is startled, asking how that's possible. Even if you don't want to become a hunter, an ability user has to have one. Our guy explains that he could never get one, since kids and teenagers need permission from their parents. Right away, Ji-hyun got it, right, bro? It was that scumbag Shinbek's fault, who did everything to stop him from becoming a hunter. He then explains that at least his sister, who's a returnee, has to have a license. But wow, she's totally confused, asking, a license for what? Apparently, Jiyeon got a call from Ji-hyun, right? And she's just finding out about it too. At that moment, he hangs up his phone and our boy says it's fine, that when he becomes an adult, he'll get one. But the guy says he's toast if that's the case. Plus, he wants to know how the kid has been training if he doesn't know anything. Seongjun says he always trained physically with Yu Young, but Yu Young always said he couldn't teach him much about his ability because it was too complex and he had no idea what it was about. But Jisung says that wasn't the case. He certainly didn't, not because he didn't know, but because he couldn't. Our boy, confused, asks why, and the guy says that when you register, you have to sign a special license, and that basically creates a pact. That pact is what prevents any licensed hunter from informing others about their abilities. That connection links the energy of all hunters, so it's something impossible to break. That's why the information circulating in the media or on the internet is just the tip of the iceberg. Besides, most of the information is actually false, just to confuse everyone. Seongjun, confused, asks why there are so many restrictions on this control, and obviously, Ji-yoon says it's because abilities are extremely dangerous by nature. Even the most insignificant skill user could kill countless people, depending on how they use it. And the problem is that an ability is invisible. You can't just take it out of someone's hand like a gun. That makes the deaths caused by them even harder to track or understand. If everyone learned this power easily, public safety would go back about 100 years to when there was death everywhere. Our boy just scratches his head. He had never heard anything about all this. And Jishun, bro, is just like me, realizing that this kid is incredible and went through hell because of that damn father who didn't teach him anything and made sure he had no chance. Still, the kid impressed him. He had well-trained instincts, and it was strange that he had come so far under such unfavorable conditions. Now he's happy because he's sure the kid does have talent. Then he tells the kid that at least there's good news. Even without a license, the students at this academy will get the necessary qualification. He hands him a blue cube and says it's called the Blue Cube. The name fits, and it gave access to the exclusive information network for hunters. It was for him. Now, he was going to send him a message later, and he should study the sites he put together as much as he could. Seongjun gets up, and the guy just tells him not to let anyone find out that he doesn't know anything. Since this is the most prestigious school in the hunter world, there's a certain elitism regarding abilities, and he doesn't want him to ruin his chances of getting into the student council from the start. But right, bro. He already knows he messed up, but says he'll be more careful. Meanwhile, so Yul also received a cube, but that one is red. The girl tells her to press it, the device opens up, and with that, she's confirmed as a student. A little window pops up there, and the woman says it's just like ChatGPT. You just have to ask anything about hunters and it will answer. She is shocked that the device, go tell it everything, and the cube says, yes, just ask, and it will talk. He gets ready and then asks if it knows about the incident that happened in Mappo 7 years ago. He wants to know exactly what happened that day. The system replies that the words are ambiguous and it doesn't understand what kind of incident he's mentioning. He's about to say it's the one where countless people died and his father was present, but the woman interrupts him and says, that kind of question isn't a good idea. What if he asks something exactly like the questions his friends ask? A little later, the woman tells him to look at the school chat. Apparently, some anonymous messages inviting people to eat, others posting pictures of cats. Seongjun says it seems pretty normal. And the woman says, yes, the students are actually normal. They're not crazy like certain people until a message appears asking who was in the hunter theory class today. There was a guy there who seemed to know absolutely nothing. The person asks what his name was, and someone replies it was some guy named Seongjun. It seems the guy doesn't even know his own rank. So how did he get admitted to this place? He's already seeing a bunch of people talking bad about his boy, and some even saying the school is corrupt. But in the little corner on the right, hey, someone says he's cute. Where are you, you naughty girl? Show yourself! Meanwhile, our boy is walking through the school, already studying a bit. Right, bro? At least the kid is trying. A message asks if they should investigate. And now someone is standing in front of him, the one who replied in the chat that there was a way to find out. Now he's saying hello. They're two reporters. They ask if he's Ji Seongjun from the Hunter Department. The moment he confirms it, the guy gets all excited and tells Emily to get the camera out. Damn, they're really not going to make life easy for the poor kid who's already completely lost and doesn't know anything. He has a sealed power. He's tired, and on top of that, they're crushing him. The guy introduces himself as someone from the school's journalism club. They go after all the interesting news. Out of nowhere, he puts a ring on our boy's finger. Pretty suspicious, right, bro? The thing lights up and our boy asks, "Right, what is this?" The reporter laughs and says that, just as everyone said, he really knows nothing at all. That thing was a rank meter, and it already confirmed he's F rank. An F rank. Out of nowhere, the guy raises his arm and says that an F rank was accepted as a hunter. If he publishes that in the newspaper, it'll be a huge headline, obviously. While the guy reports the news, Seongjun is not happy at all and asks who allowed him to do something like that. But the guy just shoves the microphone in his face and wants to know what little tricks he used to get admitted. The rumors in the community say he paid a huge sum to the school. Others say he's the son of some extremely famous hunter. Our boy, however, loses his patience, goes up to the reporter and tells her to lower the camera. She gets scared and obeys, but her friend says no, that she can't call herself a journalist for acting like that. Seongjun just says things are going to get physical if he doesn't give that ring back. The weird guy, smiling like a maniac, says that if he wants this interview to end, he'll have to take him down, which is impossible for an F-rank student. But there he is, on the ground, bro, begging him to stop, saying he'll give the ring back, that there's nothing to worry about. Seongjun, however, is already wondering how he's supposed to get into that so-called student council with people like that around. Next scene, something says the changes came quickly. Hagihara says the combat tests against creatures will be held in teams of 3 or more. The guy in the tank top tells Seongjun that his team is already half full. Another one replies that, unfortunately, he doesn't have room for him either. And a girl says they only accept people of C rank or higher. What rank was he, bro? The poor guy already realizes everyone is going to reject him. So he approaches the professor and says there's not much he can do. Nobody will accept him on a team. Poor guy. And Hagihara just replies that if that's the case, he's going to have to do the test alone. He's surprised and scared, but he's already face to face with the test monster. Before he could even say that was unfair, he already took one to the face and fell to the ground. He knew they would treat him like this, but he didn't expect things to change so quickly, and with that, he gets a score of 0. In another class, a professor calls on student Ji Seongjun and tells him to come up with a dungeon strategy based on what's written on the board. The poor guy, bro, is still learning about skills. How is he supposed to create a dungeon plan already? The guy keeps throwing questions at him and he fails them all, and then the professor gets on his case and wants to know why he's even in this place. He just apologizes, right, bro? Kind of annoyed, but unable to say much. Now, in the cafeteria, he's there, seething inside. He didn't care about the students, but the professors were such trash, and they were already testing his patience, because that bastard spent the whole class just asking him questions. Not to mention, it was obvious he was giving him the hardest questions. How was he supposed to know the weakness of a monster that appeared in 1986? Then Sue shows up and gives our boy a little hello. But he's startled. Modan arrives and pushes her a bit, waving at him and making a face, which already tells him that with the terrible reputation he has, it's better not to get too close to his own sister. Otherwise, the poor girl will also suffer by association, and things will only get harder for her. Especially since he didn't care about that kind of treatment from the first to the last day at school. He's always been alone and nothing has changed. The only problem for him is this whole student council business. At this rate, it'll be hard to receive an offer. His chances were dead. He needed someone strong by his side. And look who shows up, Subin, asking if he's going to eat alone. As always, our girl asks what he's doing there. And Subin just ignores her. He says that of course nobody wants to be friends with the person who knows nothing. Damn you, Seal, Subin! You've been alone your whole life because as soon as someone sat in front of you, you'd get up. Until Subin says he had something important to talk about. It was about his older sister. He asks, what? And the guy says it's because she's in a situation that doesn't look good. He's a little confused and tells her to explain the details. We never stop to think about it. But his sister was actually a bit older than him, and then he realizes that yesterday Seongjun also participated in that creature test. The blonde turns around and asks what she's doing just standing there. She's a little confused, not saying anything, she can't say a word. And the woman asks if she doesn't know how to use a weapon, or why she didn't use any skills. Modan tells her to calm down and says she did the best she could to make sure everything went well. The blonde wants to argue, but she turns around and says it's fine to forget it. To the side, Seongjun apologizes and Subin overhears everything. He says that apparently things went well since she took care of it, but apparently they are already bad-mouthing Seongjun in her class. The poor girl thinks that, as expected, since that day she's been having trouble using magic, Jishung had already warned her that if she used her powers and got involved in that mess, she would end up on the teacher's radar. She remembers the guy she killed, the fact that something happened 7 years ago with her father, and that whole thing with the cube that nobody lets her explain. All of it leaves her tired and confused about why school is so exhausting. Suddenly, she falls asleep and wakes up sometime later to see that the class is already over. She wonders what kind of idiot falls asleep in an important class, but then she notices that someone else was next to her. Bro, she sees Subin there, handing her the notes she needed to copy. She thinks about stopping him, but remembers she fought with her brother. He gives her a harsh look. She gets startled and runs off. She's on the stairs alone, telling herself she's an idiot when someone appears behind her and asks why she's crying. Bro, who is this guy? Oh right, he's the guy from the board game. Maybe he's a good person? I hope so. He tells her not to be sad over something so silly and says he can show her the notes. She thanks him and he gets a little awkward. The guy says to just follow him, but when they get to another room, Junior calls Yoonbi and tells her to show the girl the notes. Seongjun realizes the jerk was pretending to be nice, but he hadn't taken notes either. The girl, somewhat embarrassed, says that last time he had warned her it would be the last time, but he's doing it again. He, however, says that it's actually a first-year student who couldn't take notes and is asking for her help. Yoonbi is there, a bit uncomfortable, and Yoonal says he can't afford to fail this year until Seongjun speaks up and says that if she doesn't want to show them, then she doesn't have to. Asking someone to do something against their will is wrong. Suddenly, bro, Yoonal's expression changes, and he says that with the way she's talking, she's implying that he's doing something wrong without even knowing her well. He went out of his way just to help her, so why is she acting like this? But Seongjun bro just replies that she really does think it's wrong. The people in the background start laughing and she leaves, saying she's out. But what the hell, bro? The psycho grabs her arm and says she's not just getting away with it. Apparently, she's really good at making people look bad. She tells him to let her go, but he says she'll have to clear up this misunderstanding before leaving until Bam Sogun lands a punch right on his nose. What the hell, bro? The whole room is in shock and Junil is stunned that he's bleeding. He's trying to understand how his body was damaged. Was it some kind of skill? She says no, and he says that's impossible. He has the body of a martial artist, so someone with her physique shouldn't be able to hurt him. Then he says that now it all makes sense. Because she's a regressor. Obviously, he said it on purpose so the whole class would find out. Some people start to say that if a girl with that body was able to damage a martial artist, she must have used a skill. Junil asks why all regressors are like this. Does using a skill on someone mean nothing to her? He lunges at her, saying he should have known it since the boat, but suddenly something hits him in the face. Bro, it's Seo Subin. Indignantly, Junil asks, who does he think he is? And he just answers with his name, saying he's a first-year student this year. On top of that, he's been watching everything from the start, and he hasn't seen. So Hyun used her skill even one time. Junil says that's impossible. That she had to have used her skill, otherwise she couldn't have hurt him. And now he realizes that Subin used a skill too. But he just ignores what the idiot is saying and says that Junil should already know that regressors have a physical capacity that is extremely superior. And besides, nobody in this room saw any kind of power being used. So it's clear she didn't use anything. In the end, even if she had, he was the one who grabbed her arm first. Not to mention that he clearly exposed her secret on purpose and lunged at her. Compared to using a skill, his actions were much worse. Junil goes after him saying he's gonna beat up the weakling, but bro, out of nowhere there's a flash of light behind him and he replies that he never runs from a fight. Funnily enough, some. Nearby girls raise a sign with his name out of nowhere and Junil realizes he's about to be defeated and humiliated. Back at the cafeteria, He tells our MC that he understands he's trying to avoid his sister, to protect her and not mess things up for her, but now that everyone knows she's a regressor, her life isn't going to be easy anyway. Our MC facepalms and says he doesn't get why, but things are never easy. Subin takes a look, sees the sister, and asks what he's going to do. It's not like he has much power to help her either. Then, out of nowhere, Winnie is right beside him saying that maybe there's a way. He turns around, asking when that crazy guy showed up, and Winnie, the old hag, says this instant ramen used to taste better. Back in the day, they were softer. They tasted better and had more meat. The cafeteria lady was much more skilled. It's a shame that accident happened. The two of them keep looking at him, confused. Subin really wants to understand, and the blonde guy slams the table saying he misses the cafeteria lady. Subin wants to know what he's doing there, while Seongjun says that's not what's important. He wants to know what Woojin meant when he said there was a way to fix this. They turn around and say that what they need is to improve their reputation. If people started speaking well of them, people would surely bother them less. Seongjun replies that it's easier said than done, and Woojin says he has to prepare for the observation class in 2 weeks. Our boy asks what that is, and he explains that it's a combat that will be held between classes 90 and 91. All the first-year students have to participate, and the ones who come to watch aren't their parents. No, bro, they're the highest-level hunters in the entire industry, including members from the biggest guilds, famous people, corporation heads, and all that, bro. Everyone involved in the hunter world comes to watch the rookies. Unfortunately for our boy, though, his dad is a hunter, so at the same time he has a father, but also a hunter. But he sees it as a great opportunity to improve his reputation. Sobin, however, says that if you count them up, it's a lot of people. How is that supposed to happen? The guy says that last year, they were divided by student number. If nothing has changed, it'll be the same. All he has to do is find a student of D rank to train with and show what he can do. If our boy wanted, he could give him the name of a really weak kid, but bro, as if that's what he wants. Woojin is already half confused and sure that the scumbag wants to fight an A rank or S rank. A while later, in the library, he remembers talking to Ji-hyung and asking to check the student records. Obviously, the guy said, "Right, bro," that only teachers could see that, but the sly guy apparently gave him the card to deliver the welcome message to Ji-hyung. He went to check the student files and find out who the regressors in these classes were this year. He doesn't say it, but it seems he found out who they are, and now the plan is to challenge them when the observation class starts. And then, when everyone is watching, he just has to use his chain to pin that person down. Bro, it's such an obvious and simple plan, it's definitely going to go wrong. Scene change to another dorm room where Yoonil slams the table, saying that damn So-hyun made him look like an idiot. Miyu wants to know what he's going to do, and he says the perfect opportunity is the observation class. He's going to show that little girl who's boss. Miyu laughs and says she's not so sure that the guy who ended up with his nose bleeding from a single slap is going to win. But she agrees with him that it's really easy to hate that. So Hyun and asks if he wants her to handle it for him. Jun-il asks if she thinks she'll win, and she says yes, definitely. But in exchange, he'll owe her a favor. Jun-il insists, saying her odds are low, the girl is a regressor. But Miyu just says that's precisely why it'll be easier. And here we go with a time skip, folks. 2 weeks have passed and our boy is ready. He opens the door and what the hell? Bro! There's a whole packed arena, my dude, and the sly guy says it's time to prove himself. Meanwhile, So-hyun is in class saying she couldn't do anything again. Apparently, the task was to use a pencil to cut some small blocks. She didn't quite get it, so Ji-hyung calls her over and asks her to come with him for a moment. Right after, he says he'll take her to the place where the observation class is being held. But it's in the middle of nowhere, and she asks if there's really a class there. He says yes, and tells her to just go through that door. There were several paths leading down to the underground of Area 13, and as she goes down, he asks her if she's ever been underground, and she says no. So he says that in the past, the school used to be a big secret, so most of the buildings weren't on the surface. They were underground. As she starts to go down, bro, look at this place. A huge city! She asks why they have a secret base. and he says it's where the most dangerous and important things are kept, incredible items and magical tools that could bring chaos and destruction. There were even terrifying creatures that had been captured for research. On top of that, there are secret places that not even he or Professor have any idea what they are. She, however, just looks at the city and makes little flowers with her breath. Right outside the elevator, he asks her how school life has been lately and if she's having any trouble. She says she's still having a hard time making friends, but at least she has Modan, not to mention that Purium and Woojin are also nice to her. She's not sure about Sobin, but she thinks he's a good person. Other than them, however, the rest of the school avoids her, and she assumes it's because of the problem with that guy, Yunol. She got nervous when he went after her because she was afraid of getting hit and end up activating that power. Ji-hyung pats her on the head and tells her to relax. Regardless of the danger she might cause, she could count on him and his brother to stop the power. What happened last time would definitely not happen again. The door opens, and there we are inside the arena, bro. Hagiwara comes over to greet them, saying he was exactly 1 minute and 42 seconds late, but Ji-hyung ignores him and says he'll now explain what this class is about. As previously announced, this would be an observation class. The upperclassmen and first years would form teams and fight in 10-minute matches, and the reason this is happening underground is because of this arena built by Mado Engineering. A little click of a button raises a barrier, and he explains that they will be given equipment and training clones will be created. 1. Any damage they receive will be transferred to the training clone. 2. He throws a punch at Hagiwara's stomach. 3. But it's the clone that takes the punch to the stomach. 4. That means that in this match, they can do whatever they want and use all the power they have without worrying. 5. At that moment, Hitsuru understands what he meant about how she didn't need to worry so much either. The professor tells them to relax. This is supposed to be interpreted as the older students giving lessons to the younger ones. Obviously, Subi and our protagonist, bro, knew that made no sense. A look to the side and all the hunters. There they were, watching them as if they wanted to eat them alive. Those guys were all from the corporations, bro. And it looks like that girl, Shinshan from Red Star and someone from UJ are there. They're extremely important guilds. Along with those other guys from corporations and such, there are a ton of them, like 4 big names. If I say them all now, you're gonna forget. So I'll tell you when they do something important. It seems the nerdy guy with glasses thinks it's pretty useless to waste time on these kids in one of these observation classes. You might think it's going to be a friendly fight, but all the students must have already realized. Everyone sees this as an opportunity to show off their skills to countless guilds. In other words, what they're doing here is scouting for talent. So it would be a good idea to pay close attention and not miss a thing. Otherwise, those bastards from UJ are going to snatch up all the gems. Walking around, Woojin is calm so far, wondering who his opponent will be. He's looking in our boy's direction, saying he's the tastiest one, but he's actually looking at the girl behind him who is carrying a sword. And Seongjun approached her and challenged her to a duel, bro. Everyone was surprised and the girl looked a bit confused, but our boy has a bad reputation, and the people around are already making fun of him, asking if some dogs just enjoy getting beaten up. The girl just turns around without a word and walks away. Bro, Sobin, and everyone else ask if he's lost his mind. He had to know that girl was a regressor, but for our boy, that was the biggest advantage, as long as his chains worked as a sealing weapon. He had a chance to win. Woojin comes over and congratulates him, saying he must have an ace up his sleeve to be so confident, but he admits it was a good choice since she's the weakest of all the regressors. Seongjun asks why, and he says that for some reason she doesn't use any skills. It seems she only fights with magic weapons, and she sealed her own powers at the end of last year. In the end, he was going to fight a regressor who doesn't use any regressor skills. What did you guys think of our boy? I'm loving the story. I've recapped it up to the current chapters, and as soon as more chapters are uploaded, I'll bring them here for you guys. I hope you like it, and see you in the next video.